Getting ready to cast the Seashell for the baby mermaid to hold here. This is, I think it was an abalone shell that I found in California when I was there. I've only got one, the half of it, but I'm going to cast it and make two of them, figure out how to weld it together. Make it look like it's the baby mermaid's actually going to be holding a shell with a pearl in it. Nothing's probably scientifically correct, so just bear with me. Use your imagination. Just sealing, just did all that to try to get it to hold in there and then seal underneath the shell so the plaster won't run in there. And I'm gonna weight it. And since I don't use the whole bottle, come on. Take the stem off. Let that set up, and I let these sit up separate, and then I can clean them out and keep reusing them for a while. All right, we're back out here the next morning getting at it. I've got the board prepped up with the sacrificial form, which I'm hoping to save it because that was a seashell from a vacation. But we're making a box around it, foam set up. I had to come back in. What I did in video was I had to cut it because it was soft and gooey and it wasn't setting up on the inside. So I cut it and then I stuck the nozzle back up in there and squirted some more in. So now we're good and solid all the way around. So to make the form, I've cut out the same length as each side pieces. And now I'll need to cut the side pieces. An easy way to try to remember to do that, not try to remember, excuse me. But an easy way to do this is just stack two up. Make them flush with the edge because you got twice the thickness from each side. Run your side pieces over till it touches. Hold it in place and just mark it. Saves a lot of measuring. Sometimes I've ran into a lot of people that have trouble with the measurements and deducting the, what are these, 3/4 inch? I haven't even measured them. Yeah, 3/4 inch. So it'd be 1.5 inches you deduct off. Now if you don't have access to the woodworking equipment, I have used Tupperware containers that were the right size before. Put these down in, put the chicken wire down in, put your pieces down in, cast them in the Tupperware. They don't hold up as good, but it gets the job done if you don't have access to all of, really all of, even hand saws. You get it done with hand saws, it'll be a lot more work. But yeah, you can use cardboard boxes and then get rid of the cardboard later when you're welding the form. There's 1,000 options you could use. Just get creative. All right, we'll start getting rid of all the extra expandifoam that came out. I used was just getting dirty. It's a cake knife, a serrated knife, bread knife. I forget what it is. I got it on clearance. Works great. When you clean it, it works great, that is. Ran it over the wire wheel. We're back. Maybe not. All right, ran it over the wire wheel, got most of it off. Here we go. Just kind of peeling some back. I could go more, but there's no sense. It's just literally, you can see it's just a couple minutes worth of work to slowly come in on it. Some of that's still not setting up. It's best when it doesn't set up. That ooey gooey will get all over your tools. So once I get to that part, I'll kind of cut it up and walk away for a minute. I have to take my daughter to school here in a few minutes, so it'd be the perfect time to let it set up while I'm gone. I keep my clay in an old tub and keep a little water on it because I like it runnier than most people would use. I just found it's easier that way, and I don't know, it doesn't really seem to waste a whole lot, but I'll mix it all up into a ball. And as I'm coming around, let's see if I can find it exaggerated. I don't know if you can see this, but right in this area, there is a definite undercut, and that will hang the clay up or chip it out and break it. The plaster, excuse me. Well, words are hard. When I set the plaster forms, plaster of Paris, and pour it over it, any of these undercuts will come through really bad and tear it up later. Now, like where it's concave really bad right in here, like I said, when I take the form out, I'm gonna mark this in so I know which side to pull up on first and try to sneak it out of there. If it screws slightly, screws the form up, which always happens. I'm not that worried about it. Easy peasy. And I tried to go, I guess it was an inch higher than the highest point on this. I'm trying to make this a more shallow form. It won't take as much abuse. Probably could even went more shallow. I'll try in the future. But I've set these up. This board doesn't have to be underneath it. It's just there. And I'm going to set this down right in that area. I want it flush on all three sides here. And then I'm going to take a drill. And I'm going to pre-drill some holes. This cheap fiber board tends to split out a little bit. Since this is 3/4 inch, I've got 1 1/4 screws. You can use whatever. I've got everything all the way up to 2.5 inch. I just don't want to go too deep because this cheap fiber board won't hold up. Fresh back from the saw. You see we're flush now, or close to. I think, yeah. And keep my same pre-drilled holes. Not that that's really an urgency. All right, we got a scrap piece of chicken wire. I'm gonna come in, cut it so much just to make it fit. You'll see why here in a minute. Just looking for a little extra out of it. That works. I'm gonna make a cage. Fold the ends in and around. It doesn't have to be super perfect. You're just looking to make something to reinforce the plaster. Just like that. There's air gaps around for the plaster to work its way through. I've got some sitting right there on where the form should be, which is fine. There we go. Air gaps all the way around. All right, next step here, we got to pull the chicken wire back out and run some just the cheapest caulk I have on the shelf. I'm just going to gob it in here. Tough to get down in most places. I'll use my finger for most of it. Just looking to make it slightly watertight, not even watertight, just plaster watertight. It's a thicker substance, so it doesn't have to be perfect. I put, I don't know, roughly a gallon and a half of water in there. I estimated how much that I would need to put in there. None of this is perfect science. I use plaster of Paris, and I just scoop it in until I have a giant island of not floating or not sinking plaster in there. That's how I know I've gotten the saturation point. I'm sure there's better ways. This is the way I do it. As you can see, the island's formed. It's slowly sinking. If I had extra plaster on hand, I'd probably add just a little more to quit sinking, but that was all I have. I'm gonna use a mixer in reverse so I don't pull air bubbles into it. Just getting broke up and mixed. I usually try to run it along the side to beat the bucket. Any air bubbles I've introduced will be in there. It's shallower than I'm used to, so I gotta go slower. Can you go shut that off, please? What time is it?
8:40.
Oh, almost time to go to school. Perfect timing. And let's hope for the best here. Oh yeah. Perfect. I like to let it run over just a little bit. Just make sure I've got good contact here. I love that. It's gonna put the tarp down and let it run over. All right, here's the form up on the workbench. You can see this is the end I marked, but this was actually the bottom of the form because the whole forms are built in reverse. So I need to flip this over to take the other side off and flip it from that end. So let's get the overage plaster poured and knocked off. Let's take this apart and see what we got. Chisels, long form chisels get thicker and thicker. I got a pry bar just in case. A big wedge. Shouldn't take much on this smaller form. On the big forms, it can be quite a challenge. Make sure which end marked. All right, this end's marked. Just in case I get to moving around and forget them. Oh, that was easy. Perfect. Some of the plaster, a tiny bit stuck. It's still wet. All right, we'll let that dry. Maybe I separated it super good time. I might make my form separations quicker. Wow, yeah, I like that. It was about an hour. I let this one sit for about an hour. Usually I let them sit for a half a day to a day. I like that. All right, here we have the Seashell form. And it's still quite actually soapy, but it's solid enough. So I'm gonna roll with it and see what I can do. It's not really gonna take much of any cleanup. I see some air pockets, but I don't think that's gonna be a problem. I think the nuts will slide right over that. So let's get rolling here and see what we can do with it. Just like with all the other welding patterns, I'm gonna hold this lead down in here so I get my ground, and I'll start building out a spider web structure and come back in and weld all the joints solid. I have to bend and tilt once I get stuff welded in and try to get stuff filled out. But that's where we're at. Let's get going. Start using the board here to finish out the where I couldn't get the nuts into the form earlier because the angle of it. So I'll start manipulating it with angles now that everything's welded up to get the last of these filled in. Usually I try to wait till it cools down a little bit, but I'm on a time crunch, so we're gonna run. I'll probably just burn myself.